You are cursed! Look at you, limping like a stray dog!
Get out of our village! You are useless to us!
They mocked her, spat at her feet, called her cursed and useless. But the old woman limping through their village wasn't what she seemed. And by sunrise, only one of them would still be breathing. This is the story of Nnenna, the goddess they forgot, and the single act of kindness that decided who lived and who burned. The village of Umuoria sat between two rivers, fat with harvest and drunk on prosperity. The yam barns overflowed. The palm wine flowed like water. Children wore beads imported from distant kingdoms. It was a village that had forgotten hunger. And in forgetting hunger, they had forgotten gratitude. On the edge of this abundance stood a small hut, barely more than sticks and red clay. Inside lived Chioma, a widow whose husband had drowned 3 seasons ago, leaving her with nothing but debts and a daughter too young to work. While the village feasted, Chioma's stomach sang songs of emptiness. While they danced, she mended torn clothes for coins so small they couldn't buy salt. But Chioma never complained. Her mother had taught her something the rest of Umuoria had forgotten. The spirits are always watching. The earth remembers kindness. And what you give in secret, the universe returns in floods. It was the morning of the new Yam Festival, when the old woman appeared. She came from the east, where the sun bleeds gold across the forest canopy. Her wrapper was torn and stained with red mud. Her hair, gray and matted, hung in ropes down her hunched back. One eye was milky white, the other sharp as a hunting blade. She dragged her left leg, each step a scrape of pain against the dusty road. In her wrinkled hands, she carried a calabash, cracked and empty. The first person she approached was Okafor, the wealthiest man in Umuoria. He sat outside his compound, supervising servants as they prepared for the festival. Roasted goats, pounded yam mountains, clay pots of egusi soup thick enough to stand a spoon in. The old woman stopped before him, her shadow falling across his feet. Water, she rasped. Just a handful of water for an old traveler. Okafor looked up from his kola nut. His lip curled. You want water? The river is that way. He pointed with his chin, dismissive, already looking away. We don't give handouts to wandering beggars. If you can walk here, you can walk to the river. His servants laughed. The old woman said nothing. She simply stared at him with that one good eye. And something in her gaze made Okafor's laughter die in his throat. But he was too proud to show discomfort. He waved her away like smoke. The old woman moved on. She approached Nnenna next, the village beauty preparing for the festival dance. Nnenna was oiling her skin with shea butter, her friends giggling around her, weaving fresh flowers into her hair. Please, the old woman whispered. A scrap of food. I haven't eaten in 2 days. Nnenna wrinkled her perfect nose. You smell like death itself, old mother. Go away before you bring bad luck to my dance. The spirits don't favor dirty things. Her friends erupted in cruel laughter. One of them picked up a stone, not to throw but to threaten. The old woman backed away, her face unreadable. House after house, compound after compound. The old woman limped through Umuoria like a ghost testing doors. Some people ignored her. Some insulted her. Some threatened her with dogs and sticks. Not one person gave her water. Not one person offered a yam. Not one person saw her as human. By midday, the old woman had reached the far edge of the village, where the prosperous compounds gave way to forgotten places, where the poor lived, where Chioma's small hut sat beneath a dying palm tree. Chioma was outside, washing her daughter's only wrapper in a clay pot, her hands red and raw from scrubbing. She heard the shuffle of feet and looked up. The old woman stood at her threshold, swaying slightly, her cracked calabash hanging from trembling fingers. For a moment, Chioma simply stared. She saw the hunger in the woman's face, the exhaustion, the quiet dignity beneath the dirt and rags. She saw herself. She saw her own mother. She saw every person the world had decided didn't matter. Chioma stood, wiping her wet hands on her wrapper. Come, grandmother, she said softly. Sit in the shade. Let me bring you water. The old woman's good eye glistened, but she said nothing. Chioma guided her to the only stool she owned, then disappeared into her hut. When she returned, she carried a calabash of clean water and a small plate. On the plate sat 3 pieces of boiled yam, her daughter's lunch, the only food in the house. The old woman stared at the plate. "This is all you have," she said. It wasn't a question. Chioma smiled, "A sad, beautiful thing. What I have is meant to be shared, grandmother. My mother taught me that hunger is a spirit that grows when you feed it alone. But when you share, it dies." The old woman took the water first, drinking slowly, her throat working like a dry riverbed finally receiving rain. Then she ate 1 piece of yam. Just 1. She tried to return the rest. "No," Chioma said gently. "You need strength for your journey. Where are you traveling?" The old woman tilted her head, and for just a heartbeat, her milky eye cleared. Both eyes became bright, impossibly bright, like stars trapped in human skull. "I am returning home," the old woman said quietly. "To a place I left long ago. To people who forgot my name." Chioma felt a chill walk down her spine, but she pushed it away. She knelt and washed the old woman's feet with water from her cleaning pot, ignoring the mud and blood, humming an old song her mother used to sing. When she finished, the old woman stood. She seemed taller somehow, stronger. "You have given me more than food and water, child," the old woman said. "You have given me proof." "Proof of what, grandmother?" "That kindness is not dead. That memory can live in a single heart." The old woman reached into her tattered wrapper and pulled out something small and dark. A seed. She pressed it into Chioma's palm. "Plant this tonight," the old woman said. "Do not leave your home tomorrow. No matter what you hear. No matter who calls your name. Stay inside with your daughter until the sun is high. Do you understand?" Chioma wanted to ask questions, but something in the old woman's voice turned her blood cold and warm at the same time. She nodded. The old woman smiled. It was a terrible, beautiful smile. Then she turned and walked away, her limp suddenly gone, her back straight as a young palm tree. Chioma watched until the old woman disappeared into the forest. Then she looked down at the seed in her palm. It was black and smooth, warm like a living thing. That night, she planted it behind her hut, whispering prayers her mother had taught her, prayers to Allah the Earth Mother, to Umuoria the Sky God, to Nnenna the forgotten goddess of rivers and vengeance. She did not know that one of those names was about to answer. The festival began at dusk. Drums shook the earth. Dancers spun in masks of painted wood and feathers. Okafor stood at the center, draped in expensive cloth, accepting praise like a king. Nnenna danced, her oiled skin gleaming in firelight, young men watching with hunger in their eyes. The whole village celebrated. The whole village drank. The whole village forgot that kindness was a currency and cruelty was a debt. Chioma stayed in her hut as instructed, her daughter asleep beside her. She heard the music. She heard the laughter. She pressed her hands together and prayed. Midnight came. The drum stopped. A woman walked into the center of the village square, and every fire dimmed as if the flames themselves bowed. She was tall, impossibly tall, her skin the deep brown of riverbed clay. Her wrapper was woven from water, flowing and shimmering, never still. Her hair moved like smoke, black and silver, coiling around her shoulders. Her eyes were the eyes from the old woman's face, but now they burned with the light of drowned stars. She was beautiful. She was terrible. She was the goddess Nnenna, keeper of rivers, punisher of the cruel, forgotten by the people she had once blessed. The villagers froze. Some tried to run. They found their legs would not move. Nnenna had rooted them to the earth like trees. People of Umuoria. Her voice rolled across the square like thunder over water. "Do you know me?" Silence. Terrified silence. "Your grandmothers knew me. Your grandfathers built shrines in my name. I filled your rivers with fish. I made your soil rich. I turned away floods and famine. And in return you gave me gratitude. You gave me offerings. You gave me respect." She walked slowly between them, her water wrapper leaving wet footprints that steamed in the cool night air. "But prosperity made you forget. Abundance made you cruel. You grew fat on blessings and learned to spit on the weak." She stopped in front of Okafor. He trembled, his expensive cloth suddenly feeling like chains. "I came to you today," Nnenna said softly. "I asked you for water. What did you give me?" Okafor's mouth worked, but no sound came out. "You gave me contempt. You gave me dismissal. You gave me nothing." She moved to Nnenna, whose beauty seemed to melt under the goddess's gaze. I came to you hungry. What did you give me? Nnenna sobbed, her flower crown wilting, her oiled skin suddenly ashen. You called me dirty. You called me bad luck. You threatened me with stones. Nnenna turned to face the entire village, her eyes blazing. I walked among you for hours. Dozens of you. Hundreds of opportunities for kindness. And not one of you saw me as worthy of your scraps. She raised her hand, and the rivers on either side of the village began to rise. Water crept up the banks, slow and deliberate, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Not one of you, Nnenna repeated. Except one. The goddess turned, and her gaze fell on Chioma's distant hut. There is a widow among you. A woman you ignore. A woman you consider beneath you. She had 3 pieces of yam. 3 pieces between her daughter and starvation. And when I came to her broken and begging, do you know what she did? The villagers said nothing. The water rose higher. She gave me 2 of those pieces. She washed my feet. She sang to me. She treated me like a human being when the rest of you treated me like garbage. Nnenna's voice dropped to a whisper, but somehow everyone heard it. She will live. Her daughter will live. The seed I gave her will grow into a tree that bears fruit year-round, forever, and her descendants will never know hunger. The goddess's eyes hardened. The rest of you will learn what it means to be forgotten. She clapped her hands once. The rivers exploded. Water roared into the village like a living wall, swallowing huts, sweeping away granaries, dragging screaming people into the current. But it was not normal water. It did not drown. It transformed. Okafor felt his legs fuse together, his skin hardening into bark. Within seconds he was a tree, rooted where he stood, conscious but unable to move, unable to speak, only able to watch as his wealth washed away. Nnenna's beautiful skin turned gray and rough. Her limbs stretched and twisted. She became a stone, perfectly carved in her dancing pose, forever frozen, forever aware. One by one, the cruel became monuments to their cruelty. Trees, stones, statues of clay, all alive, all conscious, all unable to do anything but witness the ruin of everything they loved. The water avoided Chioma's hut entirely. It parted around her home like a river around a sacred rock. She held her daughter close, watching through a crack in the door as the goddess reshaped Umuoria into a graveyard of regret. By dawn it was over. The rivers returned to their banks. The village was gone. Where compounds once stood, only trees and stones remained, arranged in a perfect circle around a single untouched hut. Nnenna appeared at Chioma's door. The goddess's anger had faded, replaced by something softer. Sadness, perhaps. Or exhaustion. You kept my gift safe, Nnenna said. Chioma stepped outside. Behind her hut, the seed had grown overnight into a magnificent tree, heavy with golden fruit that glowed like captured sunlight. This tree will feed you and your daughter, Nnenna said. Its fruit will heal sickness. Its leaves will purify water. It will never die, and it will never stop giving. Just as you never stopped giving, even when you had nothing. Chioma fell to her knees. Great Mother, I don't deserve. Nnenna lifted her gently. You do. You remembered what they forgot. That we are all beggars at some door. That today's powerful are tomorrow's desperate. That kindness is the only thing we truly own. The goddess stepped back, her form beginning to shimmer like heat on water. I am leaving again, Nnenna said. But I will not forget you. And when your time comes, your spirit will join mine in the rivers, and you will help me test the next generation. Because this world will always need reminders. What about them? Chioma whispered, looking at the trees and stones that had once been her neighbors. They will stand for 1,000 years, Nnenna said quietly, conscious, aware, watching as the world moves on without them. Perhaps that is enough time to learn. The goddess faded into mist, then into nothing. Chioma stood alone in the ruins of Umuoria, her daughter clinging to her wrapper, the golden tree glowing behind them. She walked to the nearest tree, the one that had been Okafor. She placed her hand on its rough bark. I forgive you, she whispered. I hope you find peace. Then she returned to her hut, picked one of the golden fruits, and shared it with her daughter. Years passed. Travelers began to speak of a woman who lived among strange trees and stones, who possessed a magical tree that could heal any illness. They called her the widow of Umuoria. They called her blessed. They called her wise. Chioma never told them what happened. She simply welcomed them, fed them from her tree, and sent them away with a single instruction: be kind to beggars. You never know who they really are. Some listened, some didn't. But those who didn't often found themselves returning home to strange misfortunes. Wells that ran dry, crops that withered, children who dreamed of a tall woman with river wrapper and burning eyes. Nnenna was still watching, still testing, still reminding, because the world will always have people who forget, and the world will always need gods who remember. Chioma lived to be very old. When she finally died, her daughter inherited the tree and continued her mother's work, and her daughter after that, and hers after that. The tree still stands today, hidden in a forest that grew up around the ruins of Umuoria. The trees and stones that were once cruel people have finally crumbled to dust, their 1,000-year sentence complete. But the golden tree remains. And sometimes, on quiet nights, travelers report seeing an old woman on the road, limping, carrying a cracked calabash, her eyes watching to see who will stop. Most people pass her by, but those who stop, who offer water, who give food, who show kindness to someone the world has decided doesn't matter, those people find their lives touched by impossible fortune. A business that shouldn't succeed, thriving. A sickness that should be fatal, healing. A child who was lost, found. The universe keeps its accounts. The goddess keeps her watch. And kindness, no matter how small, is never wasted. This is the story our grandmothers told us. This is the lesson we carry in our bones. Be kind to the beggar at your door. Give water to the thirsty. Feed the hungry, even when you are hungry yourself. Because you never know when the person asking for help is actually a goddess testing your soul. And you never know when your single act of kindness might be the only thing standing between you and divine wrath. Remember Chioma. Remember Umuoria. Remember that what you give comes back. Always. The spirits are watching. The earth remembers. And Nnenna walks among us still, waiting to see who will pass her test. Will you? If this story touched something in you, there are many more waiting. More tests. More goddesses. More moments when a single choice decided everything. The next tale is already beginning. Another village. Another forgotten god. Another chance to learn before it's too late.